World leaders have been calling on India and Pakistan to ease the tensions. Let's take a listen to what they've been saying.
We urge India and Pakistan to act in the larger interest of peace and stability, to exercise restraint and refrain from actions that may further complicate the situation.
Now more than ever, it is essential to keep a cool head. Composure and reason are required.
Despite those pouring fuel on the fire, Turkey is making every effort to reduce tensions and open channels of dialogue before events reach a point of no return.
My position is I get along with both. I know both very well, and I want to see them work it out. I want to see them stop.
Well, for more now, we're joined by Daniel Markey. He's Senior Fellow at the Foreign Policy Institute at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. Mr. Markey, it's good to have you with us on this Friday. World leaders, as you know, have been calling for calm. Are India and Pakistan, are they listening to any of them?
It's a great question, and it's the question right now. I think if you were looking at this crisis in terms of prior crises, you'd see it as we've kind of gone past the first chapter and even the second one, the first being the attack on India and Indian tourists, the second being India's response. And now we're waiting to see what happens in a third chapter. That is a serious Pakistani response to what India has done. And this is the time for important diplomacy. If others can weigh in now and convince Pakistan not to take more significant escalatory steps, that might be a very helpful thing in bringing this crisis to a close.
Pakistan's defense minister has said that the United States is leading de-escalation efforts. With that in mind, I'd like for you to take a listen to what the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said when he was speaking to Fox News Channel's The Story with Martha McCallum. Take a listen.
We want this thing to de-escalate as quickly as possible. We can't control these countries, though. Fundamentally, India has its gripes with Pakistan. Pakistan has responded to India. What we can do is try to encourage these folks to de-escalate a little bit, but we're not going to get involved in the middle of war that's fundamentally none of our business.
So there you have J.D. Vance basically saying that's your war, not ours. What do you make of the messaging that's coming out of the White House?
I think this messaging, frankly, is unfortunate. I think that the vice president has it a bit wrong. The United States has not infinite leverage with these powers, but a significant role to play. And exercising its leadership internationally is something the United States has traditionally done, even when a conflict is on the other side of the world. And this is no minor conflict. This is a conflict between two nuclear-armed states. I would also say we're hearing mixed messages from Washington because while the vice president is saying this, the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio, has apparently called both sides. And I would be surprised if he wasn't having kind of quiet, behind-the-scenes conversations with both India and Pakistan to try to de-escalate seriously. So, frankly, I think the vice president's comments are poorly timed and a little bit off the mark.
You say conflicting signals being sent. When it comes to India and Pakistan, the U.S., it seems to have conflicting interests. I mean, how does that play into its mediation efforts, if there are any?
Yeah, the U.S. position in this has really changed over the years. I mean, there was a time when the United States honestly did find itself somewhat squeezed between ties with Pakistan, which it wanted to maintain in part to fight the war on terror after 9/11, and improving ties with India, although there was still some Indian suspicion about the United States. Now I'd say the United States is more firmly tilted in India's favor. We're much closer strategic partners with India than we are with Pakistan. And so that does complicate things in a crisis because on the one hand, we want to kind of firmly back India and show them we're a good partner. On the other hand, we are legitimately concerned about the possibility of escalation that could go up to a major war and possibly even nuclear use.
And what about China? It has a strategic alliance with Pakistan. It's a major supplier of arms to Pakistan. How does that affect the conflict between Pakistan and India?
Yeah, China, in some ways, is the most important external player in this conflict. Among other things, China, not only is it a close friend of Pakistan, as you've said, probably the closest thing that China has to an alliance aside from maybe North Korea. But also, China is the major provider of military equipment that Pakistan has used against India so far. And in some ways, this war has kind of been a testing grounds for Chinese high-end air-to-air missiles, relatively newer Chinese-built jets that Pakistan is using. And so far, at least reportedly, they have succeeded in downing at least one Indian high-end aircraft of its own, a French-built Rafale. And so China is very directly involved. It is clearly also having conversations. Publicly, it's urging a degree of restraint, and privately, it's probably counseling Pakistan as well, although we don't know exactly what they're telling Pakistan at this moment.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it would be in China's interest for things to blow up that would worsen its relations with India. So, I mean, could China gain anything strategically from this latest escalation?
Right. China also, you're right, has a degree of balancing act that it has to play. It has, since this fall, tried to improve relations with India, which are really in a deep freeze ever since 2020, when the two had a military skirmish along their contested border. And so China would like to improve ties with India at the margins. But honestly, at this time, China does see Pakistan as the closer partner. It sees India as a kind of a problematic neighbor. And if this crisis ends in a way that makes India look weaker, that puts India in a bit of a box, I think China would be okay with that. But you're right, they don't want to see it actually get to a full war because that might implicate China more directly. And certainly a nuclear conflict would absolutely be devastating for the entire region, something China doesn't want to see.
And beyond China, beyond the United States, who are the other important players in this conflict? I mean, is there anyone who could help de-escalate?
Well, we've seen some diplomatic activities, certainly from the Saudis. We've also heard some comments from the Iranians. Both of them have important relations with both India and Pakistan. The Saudis especially. I mean, the Saudis are major sellers of oil to India. There are a lot of Indians working in Saudi Arabia and in the Gulf more broadly. So they have some tight relations with Narendra Modi and his government in New Delhi, but they have also had historically close ties with Pakistan. So they may have some influence. They don't have a huge amount of leverage with either side. So really they can be most helpful if India and Pakistan are actually looking to escape from a conflict. They may be able to provide them a kind of a fig leaf or useful way to de-escalate and still retain a degree of honor and have a sense that they've come out ahead.
You will certainly be aware that this is not the first time that India and Pakistan have been in this situation, hitting each other with cross-border strikes, but not yet embroiled in an all-out war. What brought them back from the brink before?
Great question. Unfortunately, in 2019, one of the things that brought them back from the brink was luck. In other words, there are a variety of things that happened in their fight that could have led them to escalate further. There was the downing of an Indian aircraft. The pilot survived. He was returned by Pakistan in a kind of a positive gesture that India interpreted in a positive way, and that created an opening for the two to back away from conflict. But that need not have happened, and things could have gotten far worse. Pakistan bombed India, narrowly missed, reportedly, some Indian senior officers. So the concern here is that, yes, both sides could be lucky again, avoid escalations, even if Pakistan attacks India now and hits some targets, doesn't hit anything that India would feel it has to retaliate for in kind. It's possible, but luck would help a great deal, as it did last time.
Yeah, let's hope there's a lot of luck to go around this time. Daniel Markey from the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. Mr. Markey, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights tonight. Thank you.